Hello, and thank you for tuning in to Scotch, Stocks, and Sticks. I'm your host, KP. With me, as always, is Dego Dom. Dom is on the lounge couch. He is our in-house cigar aficionado. We have a special guest today to kick off our very first show. This man has been an investor in cannabis since before your balls dropped and dunking on trolls since 2014. Please welcome the founder of MarijuanaStocks.com, as seen in Forbes, Vice, The Street, and Men's Journal, as well as partner of True Trading Group, The Wolf of Weed Street, Jason Spatafora.
Hey everybody, how are you?
Welcome, Jason. How you doing, man?
KP, always good to see you. I'm glad to be here for your first show.
I appreciate you joining. You know, this is a huge undertaking, man. I gotta admit, I am a little nervous, but a scotch or two, you know, during the show should loosen me up a bit.
Yeah, it is the weekend.
Yeah, man. So I appreciate you taking the time to sit down with us, man, here in the lounge. You know, before we get into everything that is the man, Jason Spatafora, I want to do our ceremonial, what are you drinking and smoking tonight?
Okay. I am drinking a Macallan 18.
Very nice.
I finally cracked open, and smoking tonight a nice Romeo and Juliet.
Oh, very nice.
Which is my favorite. A lot of people like the Cohibas. You know, I like the Romeo and Juliets. You know, my wife's Cuban, so I got the hookup for, and I'm down in South Florida, so they're pretty easy for me to get.
You got all the boxes checked. I love it. Yeah, and you know, when you're offered either one of those, you know, you can't complain. You know what I mean?
No, you can't.
So me and Dego Dom, we're going to crack for our first show. We picked up a bottle of Johnny Walker Gold Label Reserve, and you know, I know there's blue. I'm a daily driver of Black Label, but I figured I'd split the difference and grab one of these because it's a very nice Scotch in my opinion. And we're going to pair it with shit. Hey, what kind of cigar are we smoking, Dego?
We got a Torrio Fuente, Don Carlos. I had a sharp. I had a bust out, very hard to get. Come out once a year, they sell out. They're beautiful sticks. I got these from the Diplomat Boca Raton. They set them up today. You can't go wrong with the Fuente. Later on, I'll talk more about it when I light it up outside, tell you about the burn and everything else. I'm going to start pouring drinks for me and KP as we speak, get the show started.
I love it.
Here's the bottle. Thank you. So, you know, when I came up with the idea for this show, you know, like I talked to you when you were, when I was soliciting you as a guest, you know, my idea for this show was to get rid of some of the noise that is just everyday stock this, stock that, headline this, headline that, yeah. And kind of just simmer everything down, create a nice chill environment, and just relax with a good guest and talk about stocks, but you know, enjoy it, right? Because I think the noise can create havoc and get in the way more often than not. You know, so Scotch, Sticks, and Stocks, you know, it just rang with me. I like the name, and I like to drink Scotch. I like to smoke sticks, and obviously my passion is stocks, so it all came together. But we are, on our side, are drinking Johnny Walker Gold. So I did want to give some bullets and some fun facts about Johnny Walker before we get into you, if that's okay.
Yeah, please, I'm very interested.
All right, good stuff. So, thank you, sir. So Johnny Walker, it's a blended whiskey, and it was created because there was just so many single malts at the time. So that's how Johnny Walker, you know, was originated. The first name of Johnny Walker, I don't know if you know this, was Old Highland Whiskey, and it was created in 1867, long time ago. Now I'm going to show everyone a picture of this, but there's when I was digging in, there's a bottle in like the Johnny Walker Museum of Johnny Walker and Scotch, and one of the first bottles, the oldest bottle to date, like that's has a date and is available, has a pickled snake in it. Real. I'm gonna post a picture, but no one knows how that snake got in there, but somehow it's in there, and they think that maybe on the ship over or what have you, it's somehow slithered in the bottle and was there for eternity. So those are some bullet points about Johnny Walker that I found interesting. I hope you found interesting as well. So I could have talked about the history of Johnny Walker, but we are drinking gold. In the order of Johnny Walker, it's Johnny Walker Red, Black, Double Black, Gold, Green, Platinum, and then Blue. We're kind of right in the middle with the gold. It's great. Cheers, brother.
Cheers, my friend.
So, you are Mr. Weed, the Wolf of Weed Street. In full transparency, are you high right now?
No, I'm not. Maybe after I have my my little.
They make it
here.
so easy today, don't they?
Yeah, everybody thinks that I just smoke copious amounts of weed.
I did.
And the reality is like, one, I got 2 kids. So my days of like getting so stoned that I understand how time travel is possible are behind me.
That's why you're a Star Wars fan.
Yeah, exactly. I have to, pick a different vice. So, like if they're out of the house, I have a few tokes, but my tolerance is not what it used to be. Which I know might make people a little like, that they might be a little disheartened by that, but
disappointed a little bit.
Yeah, like I don't like to be foggy when, especially when I'm trading. And
Sure.
the last time that I traded stoned, I made a really big error, and it ended up being like a happy mistake, but it could have been just gone the other way.
Yeah, no, I hear you, man. And it's the same thing for me. I did get my medical card. In PA, you can get your medical card. I had anxiety, so it works in my favor. And I not when my kids and my wife are around, but when it's me time in my own home, in the comfort of my own home, and I'm just relaxing. And shit, my back's is all banged up anyway, so it does help with that. So with you, I kind of want to take a trip down memory lane. How you became the Wolf of Weed Street. How did it all begin? And just connect the dots, man, because you're everywhere. Our listeners, they see marijuanastocks.com. They see True Trading Group. Navigate us through the ocean of Jason Spatafora.
Well, like a lot of people, I was always very interested in the market, but I didn't come from a family with a lot of money. So, getting into the stock market was always like, oh, you need a stockbroker. And it seemed like there was such a big barrier for entry, right? And then, like when I was in high school, I was like, oh, I'm going to be a stockbroker. I had no idea what that meant. Got out of college, did something entirely different. I worked for one of the biggest disaster firms in the world, just doing like worst case scenarios. Like if the company I worked for was like the first company into the Pentagon after 9/11, like that type of thing, like airline disasters, F5 tornadoes. I was a cowboy in my youth, like many people. I'm from New York originally, and then I moved to South Beach. I got this job.
I would have guessed that. New York or Jersey.
Yeah, exactly. Then I met my wife. I asked her to go to the ATM machine and take out some cash for me. And, it's like, oh, it's in my checking. There's no savings. And she's like, why do you have so much cash in your checking account? And I was like, well, I don't like credit cards. And if I can't afford it, I'm not going to buy it on a credit card.
It's funny because I'm like that to this day,
yeah. So
it's amazing.
She was really on me to open a savings account, and I was just like, you know what? I've got the money. Let me just start investing. I opened the Scotch trade account because I was like, I think I could do better than 0.3% with a very simple strategy of what's the world going to need in 10 years. You know, first company I bought was this company called Energy Recovery Inc., which was a desalinization company. I bought it for like $3. It's $18 now. So this is 2013. And I started to get into and I started with like $1,500. And, you know, every other paycheck, I'd put like $500 in. I got more comfortable, but I didn't understand. I wasn't a day trader. I didn't even know what PDT rule was. Because my whole thinking was like, all right, you know, you invest for the long term. And then in like August of 2013, I heard Eric Holder give a speech about how the Department of Justice was gonna back off of states that had cannabis legislation on the books. And I was like, wow, pot stock's a thing? So I went to the old Google machine and I typed in pot stocks, and it brought me to this really crappy website called marijuanastocks.com. And, you know, one of the things he talked about was like banking. And I was like, oh, this company says they do payment processing. And I was like, oh, it's a penny stock. I was like, how do you buy a penny stock? Because I'm like, why isn't this working? I'm like trying to market order in.
Sure.
And I was like, wait, do I have to buy the whole ass? So I end up, you know, putting in like $500, and then 2 days later, the thing goes up 50%. And I was like, whoa. I was like, what kind of return is this? I was like, this is amazing.
That's a good
And then
score.
2 days after that, it tanked. And I was like,
Okay.
I ended up losing $150. And from there, I was just kind of like hooked and the whole idea of it. And I was like, all right, let me go with like a picks and shovels company. And you know, and the whole time I had this other job. You know, I started doing it, and I finally found the company that I liked. Information was really scarce out there. So I'm reading like all the message boards. I'm on iHub. I'm like trying to understand. And I'm just like, all right, it's just a minefield. So I'm like, all right, this one seems the best. You know, I started buying it at like 4 cents. And then like, as we get closer to 2014, Colorado's about to go legal. And I invested like a total of 10 grand, and I see some really shady stuff going on. I was like, man, this company's junk. And like, you know, I kind of teach myself like how to read a balance sheet in the easiest way. I'm like, okay, if there's parentheses, avoid it. You know, if there's parentheses all over the place, just avoid it. You know, because I failed accounting 101. So around this time, then like, you know, similar to what we were just talking about, like if nobody's home, you know, you smoke a joint, whatever. So I'm engaged now, and my fiance goes out with her friends, and I'm like, I'm going to get blind stoned. So I get blind stoned, and I see a trailer for The Wolf of Wall Street. And I was like, Wolf of Weed Street. That'd be a funny one. I go, I bet somebody has it on Twitter. And I don't have, I'm like, I barely, you know, I have a Twitter account, but I've got like 10 followers, and like one's my mom, my other one's my dad, like type deal. And I was like, oh, okay, nobody has it. So I grabbed it, and I'm like, oh, I could just talk shit about all these companies. Can I curse?
That's all.
So, you know, I start going at it, and I start looking, and everything starts going nuts. And all of a sudden, the 10 grand I have invested becomes 50. And then one day, and I remember it was January 10th, my buddy calls me, and he's like, I talked to and he named my other friend. He's like, I talked to UC. He's like, I hear you're crushing it on pot stocks. He goes, I want you to sell all of your pot stocks right now. I'm like,
just don't.
Why? I'm like, why? He's like, I'm looking at all these short positions. He's like, UC told me about it. And you know, I'm watching all these short positions build up. He's like, I was like, dude, they're not. He's like, they're all scams. And I'm like, they're not scam. And I go, he's like, dude, I got a Bloomberg terminal. And I was like, what's a Bloomberg terminal?
Oh,
you know?
no.
So I have this conversation with him.
I know where this is going.
And while I'm having the conversation, my account's just going up, up, up. I get off the phone with him, and my account's at 75 grand. Now, this is crazy to me. Because like
750%,
like more than my base salary at my other job. And I'm like, I can't believe this. So I was like, you know what? I was like, I'm going to tweet the warning. So I was like, just talked to one of my buddies. He said that there's a sector takedown in effect. You've been warned. Half hour later, the entire pot stock market dropped 60%.
Oh, shit. So you were the guy.
So 75%. So from 75,000 at the close, I had 29,000.
Wow.
But
Wow.
so now you would think, so I'm like depressed. I'm like, oh my God. Now I was an English and creative writing major in college. And, you know, I'm a real big fan of the movie The Usual Suspects.
Oh, I love it.
So, you know,
classic.
Kaiser, you know, like the
I
beginning,
know
the Kaiser Soze story,
poof.
right?
He's gone.
Like he shoots his kid, like does this, like,
Yeah.
and like the myth is there. So I was like, you did call the drop.
You did.
So I had my other Twitter and I was like, did you guys see what this Wolf of Weed Street guy said? And then I like posted on a message board, and then all of a sudden it went nuts. It like went viral on message boards. Like I hear he's a market maker. I hear he's a hedge fund guy. Blah,
It's
blah,
amazing,
blah.
isn't it?
It was insane.
The echoes. Yep.
And because I've been looking at the sector so hard, I had a really good idea of like what was going to bounce. So I started calling it out, and it just so happened that I was right. Now, like on this day, I had like 500 followers, and I was just like talking shit about companies, you know. And then I started using PayPal. I was like, hey, does anybody live close to this company? I'll send you $100 if you can see if it's a PO box or a real company. And I started doing like guerrilla like due diligence.
Just blue collar, digging in.
Yeah. You know, I was like, I walked into, like, I saw, you know, there was like a company down here in Miami, and I walked in and I was like, oh, I'm from the Wolf Fund, you know, like that type of stuff. And then I was looking for companies that had hyperinflated market caps and companies that did the same exact thing, but were making more money. And I found a bunch of those, and some went, you know, like one that I got in at like 0.004. in the next 3 months ended up going to 45 cents, you know, so like 10,000% gainers.
Yeah, that's silly.
That's
amazing.
I'm certain that I coined the term unicorn because that was like part of the Wolf vernacular.
Yeah.
And then, you know, so fast forward from like when I started to like April 1st, 2014, my 10 grand investment became 6 something. And, you know, from there, like all of a sudden, people started reaching out, like Rolling Stone, Forbes, and Vice, and you know, and it just kind of took a life of its own. And then and I'd gotten married in February, and I had to wait to go on my honeymoon, but I was going to Thailand, and I was like, I don't want to be holding penny stocks. So I got out of a lot of my positions, and while I was, you know, pretty much out for the most part, the market just tanked. You know,
so it was just a timing thing. You got out.
Yeah, I had
you were
really
traveling.
good timing, and then we ended up going through like this prolonged bear market for like the next year, and in that process, me and 2 other guys ended up buying marijuanastocks.com and turning it into a hub for, you know, just news and investor relations, and you know, it's just kind of wild from then on out. And, you know, I've been just kind of a student of, you know, what the cause and effect in the market, you know, and I've been the guy that hasn't been afraid to kind of put his nuts out there, because the way I look at it is like, yeah, I started with nothing. Like, what's the worst that's going to happen to me? Like, oh, I'm going to be wrong. Well, you know, as long as I'm right on the big moves, and it really doesn't matter. And, you know, I've called a lot of those big moves well in advance, from like the crash in 2019 to the top of the market in 2018, and the seasonality, you know, everywhere in between, you know.
It's amazing. Yeah, and you and I are a lot alike. I think, you know, me personally, I like the themes. I like the cause and effect, the if, the then. You know, what will be as a result of what's happening now today, and putting my positions in the market for what will happen, right? And you know, a lot of these people are day traders, and they're great at what they do. But I like to, you know, my favorite thing to do. Now, granted, in this the market that we've been in over the last couple months, I've had to day trade more often than not, just to, you know, stay sane. But my love and my passion is to look for disruptors. What are we experiencing today that will be a payday in the future?
Yeah.
And I make my moves, and most of the time they work. I miss just like everybody else, but the majority of the time they have been successful. So I love it about you, man. I think you and I are a lot alike in that regard, and that's a great story. I mean, the way you've navigated it all, the blue collar DD, just getting gritty with trying to dig into companies and understanding, what they're doing today and what they're doing tomorrow is just awesome. And I think, a lot of the traders in today's market, they don't do that as much. They're looking for 100% banger today or an overnight gapper for tomorrow, and they're exiting their position. You and me, we're family men. We like to have that time still. And, if we're watching everything 24/7, we don't have that time, because it is a lonely profession. Like you and I chatted in our prior phone call, it can be a lonely profession if you don't involve yourself in other things and enjoy other aspects of life than just spending 14 hours behind a computer.
100%. You can't take it with you. As I've gotten older, because if I became the wolf when I was in my 20s, and like you'd oh yeah, remember that wolf guy? It would be like that, because I would have done something really stupid. And especially over the last year, that's when like True Trading Group really came into its own, and I was doing all of my stuff on Twitter. And when the market just started, and to kind of put it in perspective, I knew about coronavirus January 7th, right? Because I was talking to another trader, and he was a super bear, and he was just looking for anything. And he's like, "Oh, have you heard of this coronavirus? It's like, SARS and, the whatever S1N1 flu. I don't know, some crap." And I was like, yeah, I think that the market's hot. Apple was like 320 or something, or I forget where it was.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I'm like, the SPY is just, it's whatever Apple does, the SPY does. And I was like, where is Foxconn, in relation to Wuhan? Like, where is the Apple factory?
Sure.
And we pulled it up on a map. And I was just like, if they start cutting production, I was like, that's when you know it's on. I was like, that's when you know it's on. And then Tesla was also ripping also. And I posted something, I think it was like January 29th. And I was like, if, coronavirus gets to the Tesla Gigafactory, I was like, look out, and people are arguing with me. I'm like, look, I don't need to, I'm giving you this. This is just my opinion.
Every trade is a debate. There's going to be the bears and there's going to be the bulls. It's just that simple.
So the noise was just kind of getting crazy. And I started to see a bunch of like these little patterns, like with the algos, like the buy algos last 15 minutes of the day, and like all this crazy stuff. And I was like, you know what? Why am I doing it for a bunch of ungrateful people? Sure. I was like, let me just start doing this inside True Trading Group, which was something that my partners had going. And, the one thing that I would say is, yeah, it was a target-rich environment. It's when I hear people like, all right, they didn't make any money in the last year, I'm just kind of like dumb. My head like explodes. But at the same time, you have a lot of these new traders that were doing things that they should not have won. Like getting, I remember somebody got 255 SPY calls on like a Monday, and we were at 220. And I was like, what the hell are you doing? I was like, this is the dumbest. I'm like, this is a sucker's option.
You can't make sense of some of the shit you see.
And it was like, as soon as the Fed got, did 2.3 trillion in junk bonds, it was just kind of game on, and they didn't even know why it was working. I mean, the month of March, It was, or no, April. I had a bad month because I was like fighting the Fed, but all of these new traders picked up so many bad habits in the last year that as we normalize, they're going to try and do some of these things that they did, this time last year, especially when we taper, when they raise interest rates, and they're going to give back all of that money, which is it's so sad to see, because you're going to have a lot of people go from like having $1 million in their trading account, like rich on a screen, to having like PDT rule. And I've seen it. I've seen it with pot stocks. And like you've got to take profit. Like don't be greedy. Understand this is a very long game, especially if you're young. Like please, I feel like I want to shake like the 25-year-old version of me that is in the market, because they are everywhere.
I had that question queued up. If you could tell your younger self, give your younger self a tip from what you know now, what would it be? And
okay, this is probably the best tip that I could give. All right, and especially if my younger self is messing with options. All right, the purpose of options is to grow your account. The way options used to be traded, people would buy like 1 or 2 and then they would exercise them. They don't do that anymore. So the young trader likes to take that option, make $1,000, and they're like, I'm awesome. And then the next day, roll it. They're like, well, I made $1,000 yesterday. I'm going to put that $1,000 into the next option. And then they hit. And then they hit. So Monday through Thursday, they hit. And then Friday, they get really aggressive and they don't even realize it, that Friday is going to be their bad day, because the casino's closed on Saturday, and we're just programmed to be aggressive. It's like, if you're the last day you're in Vegas, if you think about it, it's probably the day that you lose the most money, because you don't care. So the best advice I would give you is take 50 to 75% of that profit from that option, okay, and put it into a stock that you think is going to be around in 10 years, or it's high growth. All right. Now, I understand that this is tough. Okay. But the purpose is you don't want to give back. You don't want to spend the rest of the week giving back that money. It's a lot easier to lose that money. So if you sock it away in something, like buy Apple, and then just keep buying Apple. Who cares? Buy both. Buy Budweiser.
It's not going anywhere.
Stocks. Buy all the stocks you're like, I think it's too expensive.
Jason, they want the Lambos yesterday.
You know what? I remember.
I'm older. You're old. You're older. You're a married man. You're a family man. You have a kid, and I think that obviously helps with our perspective on life, and maybe dictates a lot of the decisions we make in life. Especially when it comes to trading too. We're always looking, short game, obviously, just like any other trader. What can we make today? But on the same time, we're always looking for how can we position ourselves to have a better future.
Yeah.
Right.
And look, if you don't like the idea of socking it away, pay yourself 2 or 3 times a week without fail. So like for me, I take profit Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, the same amount. It doesn't matter if I had a good week or a bad week. It's there to keep you honest. And I can promise you, your account will look like this, because while you're doing this, you're going to become a better trader. You're going to really get into the rhythm, and you're going to turn it into a video game that actually pays you.
Take points on the board.
You want to have enough money to do something, not enough money to do something stupid. So pay yourself. It's like Zach Morris says, treat yourself, right?
Treat yourself.
So treat yourself. But, or at the very least, eliminate all the debt that you have.
Debt is a killer. And it's to your point, pay yourself every day.
I know traders that have like $1 million accounts and like 650 credit scores. Like, you want the Lambo? Well, you want a better interest rate, buddy. There's no easy way to tell you. And then if you understand how compounding works, because then it makes sense. Like, buy yourself a lot. I was talking to Hugh from PGIR, and we were talking about it, because look, those guys have done a phenomenal job I'm like, it's like,
I love that he teaches all these kids about the Roths, getting into Roth IRA and planning for futures,
yeah.
because
So I was talking to him and I was like, and he's asking me some advice, and I was like, and I hope he doesn't mind on this. He'll be all right.
no, he's fine. You and I are buddies.
I was like, get a life insurance policy. And he's like, well, actually, he's like, I already have one from my other job. And I was like, dude, you're so smart. I was like, there's nothing I can teach you. I was like, you're going to like, in 10 years, 20 years, I'm like, I hope you can give my kid a job.
He's a smart kid, man.
And that's the way you got to do it. Like, look, because if you're socking that money away, all right, and this is what I promise everyone that's watching this, sock that money away. They're going to raise interest rates, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Have a very good understanding of what happened from September 29th, 2018 to Christmas Eve, 2018. All right, they talk about taper, market reacts. Powell speaks for the first time, and the market craps itself. It's like having it's like the almanac from Back to the Future too, right?
Yeah, right.
You've got the
what was that guy's name?
Biff Tannen.
Biff, yeah.
Biff Tannen. Yeah, so be like Biff Tannen, all right?
Be like Biff.
Like you can turn a lot of money, and guys, they're gonna raise interest rates. They're gonna lift the moratorium for all these landlords. Housing's gonna go down. Like, I'm not saying worst parts of the Bible, but you are gonna see a pullback, and it's gonna be such an opportunity. And if you're prepared for it, and if you're not doing stupid things with your money, you'll turn $1 million into like 3, and like that.
Yep.
I've seen it, like I had a friend, he started with options with $5,000. And like when that thing happened, in 2 months, he had $500,000.
Yep.
He didn't even know what a call or a put was.
And half the time you don't. And a lot of this, I hate to use that old term, rather be lucky than good, but we put ourselves in positions for success, but there's always a little bit of luck. Like,
of course.
I made a shit ton during coronavirus. I kept buying. Everyone else was running. I was buying. I remember I had Penn Gaming under $4. Penn Gaming under $4. I had Fuel Cell at 36 cents, and VuC at like $1.05, Plug at $1.26. People were scared. I was like,
yeah, it's like,
how much more can it go down?
Yeah,
it's not going to zero.
And it's funny because it's like Boeing hit 90, and I was like, all right, I bought 1,000 shares, and I called my father-in-law. I'm like, you got to buy Boeing right now. He's like, how much did you buy? I go, I bought 1,000 shares. He goes, okay, I'm going to buy right now. I was like, you need to be. I was like, U.S. Steel's $5. I was like, do I think U.S. Steel is going to go to 0, or do I think it's going to go to 10? I was like, all right, buy U.S. Steel, like buy Square at 40, buy Paychecks at 50, buy all this stuff, and just kind of sit.
That's all. And now you got time.
It's crazy. Like, like the stock market is not this magical, like, oh, it's so tough. So, guys, I was like Van Wilder. I graduated with like 50 credits that I didn't need. I went to University of Arizona, which makes sense. I was a double major English creative writing major. Like, when it comes to math, like after long division, that's it. Like, I'm done. Like, but
you're me, man.
If you understand trends and you can just think like logically and practically, like, okay, Apple's not going anywhere. People aren't going to throw away their iPhones. It's like Exxon. Exxon goes down to $32, and and with like the traders, I have these things called profit positions. So kind of what I was saying with the options, take 50%.
Does Exxon still pay a good dividend? Yeah, they do. I remember buying them. They were cheap. I think it was COVID. They pay a great dividend. I was like, well, what's worth it?
Chevron pays a good dividend.
Chevron? Okay, sorry.
But,
keep going.
So you have like these profit positions where you roll your profit into a bunch of things that are not sexy. So I gave them a list of companies. It was Rite Aid, Walgreens, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Exxon, Chevron, Budweiser, JetBlue, Spirit Airlines, and Alaska Airlines. And they're like, oh, I don't, this is so tough. It's so tough. And then when that first news for the vaccine came out, all of a sudden they were like,
yep, it's opening up.
it makes so much sense.
Boom.
You know?
Yeah.
And at the same time, you open your account and you see like, oh, I got 5 shares of Exxon, I got 2 shares of Boeing, but you remember like, oh, that was from that good trade I did, you know? Because people like to, you know, to pat themselves on the back and like celebrate when they make a good trade. And then when they make a bad trade, they obsess about it. When it should be, you should obsess about the good trade and understand which category you fell into. Were you first, you know, meaning you saw an idea before everybody else? Were you fast? Did you see a volume spike? Did you see something on the chart? Or were you lucky? You know, and I'll tell you, the lucky money is the first one to go. So like all lucky money should go right into the stuff for the long term.
I agree to that. You know, I did an interview on PGIR with them, Dan and Hugh, and you know, they asked me how I weed through the static that is, you know, the stock market, and I said, look guys, you know, I think I coined this term, get fast at moving or get fast at moving slow. And what I mean by that is if you find one thing that you have success with and you actually like track the success and understand how you arrived at that success in the market, a lot of this game is replication. You know what I mean? There are many things that you can do over and over and over. And, you know, there's a million ways to make money in the market today, you know, but if you don't know all those other ways, it's fine. All you need to do is find success in 1, 2, and then build off that foundation. You find one thing that's paying you, and you replicate it on a day-to-day, and then you stack another thing in your toolbox, and then you do the same. And pretty soon, you know, you're working, and you're getting paid on a day-to-day. It's a great feeling, you know, and so get fast at moving slow, and all that shit. It comes second nature at that point. You understand how to attack a position, how you're going to enter. You do all the due diligence you need to. You know, you understand what the ramifications or what the risk could be, and then you take your position.
And I always tell people, like, because, you know, I start with people that have like, you know, $500 to $1,000 in their account to, you know, people with 7 figures in their account and just want to learn how to do specific things. And we always start like, all right, you know, I was like, all right, try and make $25 a day for 2 weeks. Then try and make 50. I go, what you're going to find is you go for 25, you make 40. You go for 50, you make 70. You know, and I'm like, then you move every 2 weeks, you just move up another $25. If you do that from 25 on, all right, and you get to 200, like you know everything, you know? And people don't understand that. Like my goal was $500, okay? And this was after I had money. And it was for the simple reason that I was asking my accountant, I'm like, how much would I need to retire? And he's like, well, what do you want he's like, how much money do you think you would need every day? And I was like, I don't know. I was like, need or want? He's like, well, whatever, both. I was like, all right, I want $500 a day. I was like, I don't need more than that. He's like, okay, you need $3 million. And I was like, that's it? I was like, so if I make $500, that's like having 3 million in the bank.
Sure.
And then that was my goal for like the longest time. And I just, you know, like, but I also, and this is the thing that a lot of people think that I'm a day trader. Like, I'm not a day trader. I'm a plumber. Okay. Yeah. All I'm doing is managing like the system. Like, I just want to make sure that the water goes from one end to the other, and, you know, like I do my maintenance. So, you know, I stay in core positions and then I trade 10 to 15% of those positions to reduce my risk and let the market pay me. Sure. You know? So, and look, it's tough for a lot of young people to get it. And it's just kind of like, you know, when you're young, when you're in your 20s, you know, there's always somebody like, oh, just wait. One day that metabolism's not going to work. You know, you're going to be like, oh, you're going to get fatter.
Yeah. Oh, I gained the COVID-20.
And we all go through it. And then there's always somebody that tries to get through to you. But it's like, look, I'm trying to get through to you. Like, this is how you get wealthy, and you do it in the way that is not stressful. Do not be that guy or girl that's chasing that sugar high, Okay. You know, like that's like one of the most important things, right?
Yep, I agree.
You know, cause as you get older, and look, you're gonna, the best lessons are gonna be the ones where you lose money, unfortunately.
Absolutely.
And it's like I tell people, like, I've lost millions of dollars on different bets in the market, so you don't have to.
I've been there. You know?
If I'm trying to tell you something, like if I tell you that, I'm like, look, this company is a scam. It's never going to go anywhere. It's not because I want cheap shares. Like, I promise you, it's because I've seen the penny stock game.
This ain't my first rodeo.
Yeah, like,
you've been there,
trust
done
me,
that.
I don't need your money. So, you know, I'm like,
and I think that's what a lot of these new traders don't get. Like, I mean, and I get it, because your origin story it's kind of like a crash course in the success and failure and the roller coaster that you had in the beginning. You learned a lot, and you took away from that just such an experience. I think that helped, you know, just catapult you on your journey. And
because look, at the end of the day, like, you know, in the other job that I had, you'd make a lot of money in a disaster. You know, there's no other way to put it. But then you'd be like, maybe no disaster happens for a year. So I'd have like a ton of money, and I'm like a young guy living in South Beach, making a ton of money, and I would just blow it. And then I'd get down to no money, and then all of a sudden hit. And then it got to the point where all of a sudden, like, I didn't like that job anymore, and I just tore through my savings. And I remember going through a McDonald's and being like, man, like, this guy's got a job, because I'd left the job. And I was like, and I was like, man, I you know, as much as I hate this job, like, I went and I did it again, but I'm like, I am never going back to that, you know? And
I know.
So the only way that you can do that is by having an appreciation of like where you are. Like, you know, I always say it like this, right? If you had to feed into your computer, like, the amount of cash it is to buy some of these things, it would be a completely different game.
Yeah.
You know, like, all right, I got $100,000 worth of calls, and, you know, which I do in one thing. They're very far out, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, dude, I'm like, this is ridiculous. This is too much. Like, do you need that much? You know, look, I suffer from it too. Yep. Right? But the difference is that I'm self-aware, and I also know how to manage and massage that position and reduce my risk over time, you know? But I'm also not making, like, you know, like, bad bets.
So. Hey, they're educated. I mean, you did
I mean,
all the legwork, all the due diligence.
They're educated until they're not.
Well, you know, every now and then you get those ones that bite you, but, you know, back to what you were saying with risk, and back to what I was saying with replication, you know, and there's a lot of things that just cycle that I've noticed. You know, everything comes around, goes around, and you know, theoretically, if you're putting yourself, if you always have a fail-safe and you go into every position with this fail-safe and you stick to that fail-safe, if shit hits the fan, then you're gonna be all right. And if you win, you know, it worked out the way you wanted it to work out. If you fail, it still worked out the way that you wanted it to work out. You know, and I think that, you know, in these newcomers into the market, you know, I think they need to understand the real risks. And you know, I said this a million times. You know, the market is like the ocean. You don't bet against Mother Nature, because if she wants to get, you know, be a bitch, you can have a bad day real quick, you know? So treat it as such. Treat it like a job, however you need to see it, to get to that point B. When you're at point B, you had success from A to B, get to point C, and just, you know, take your time, work the cycle, and stick to the plan.
I hope we get through to somebody. I mean, we're having a couple of cocktails, but this is like intervention for the stock market.
Isn't it? Well,
this is like a TLC show.
It is, yeah. I mean,
It's
well,
like-
I like seeing success. I love it. You know, I've been successful in my career up to this point, and I've had a lot, and I've also experienced failures. Don't get me wrong, and
Of course.
you know, but did I learn from them? Yeah, of course I did. And we're getting older. I mean, we aren't. What are you in your 30s? I'm in my 30s.
I'm 42.
42? Oh
Yeah.
shit, man. Oh, I'm in my 30s, older 30s. I'm 39, so we're close. You know, a few
Yeah,
years
man.
difference. So we're starting to get the back pains, but more importantly, we've learned a lot from our failures to lead us to success. And you know, you've had so many, and your story is just great, man. I dig everything about it. I did want to transition a little bit.
Yeah.
To
It was
just
getting a little dark.
no, I wasn't. Well, people need to know that. They need to know the bad side of things in order to get to the good side of things. I mean, if you don't go in without a plan in any trade, you know, this is going to be a short-lived experience, you know, and then
Yeah.
you're back to your day job that quick. So if you don't plan for the apocalypse, then
Yeah.
you know you can't see the.
If you seek peace, plan for war.
There you go. I love it. We'll put it on a t-shirt. Jason Spatafora, Scotch, Stocks, and Sticks. You contribute to a lot of stuff, a lot of outlets, and very recently you were quoted in a U.S. news article. I think it was How to Invest in Marijuana.
Yeah.
You know, which discusses the legalization and all the different factors. But I think, you know, the synopsis was that those are the most pressing concerns, you know, of how weed stocks, the marijuana stocks, have pulled back a little bit in the recent months. So talk to me about, is now a buy time for
Yes.
weed stocks? Yes.
Yeah.
I would agree.
Look, I can tell you why.
Tell me why. I
mean,
wanted that was my next question.
Okay. So I also don't want people to think that I'm a Monday morning quarterback, okay? Because that's like, out of everything, that's the thing that I hate the most, because I see all these Monday morning quarterbacks, especially on Twitter.
Mhm.
So I want you, the viewer, to go into Twitter when you, after, you know, while you're listening to this or whatever, and I want you to type in @Wolf of Weed Street, ST, so my handle, in the search bar, and then type in like IDES, IDES of March. Ides of March is like 15th of March. It's the day that Julius Caesar was killed. So I've been talking about this for literally years, okay? In February, I did a 4-hour webinar over 2 weekends about the Ides of March for our members. And I was like, we're going to get a pullback in pot stocks. It's going to be anywhere from like 15 to 25%. It ended up being a little bit deeper, and this is how we're going to hedge, right? You know, some of the tricks. In June of last year, the first webinar I did, I went over the seasonality of cannabis stocks and the difference between the Canadian companies, these are the LPs, or licensed producers, and the US companies, which are MSOs, which are multi-state operators. And, you know, not to get into like too much of it, you know, we're in this pattern, okay? And where volume leaves in March for, you know, there's a bunch of different reasons. I'm not going to bore you with it, but every year people think that it's different. And every year I'm prepared for it. And every year, especially every year that I've gone through a bull market, because from 2019 to basically June of last year, it was a bear market. So, you know, if you type in Ides of March, you're going to see a couple things. One, you're going to see in March of 2019, I talked about this. And I even put up a calendar. So I talked about it on March 5th. I talked about I'm exiting all my pot stocks. And then I'm going to go short Aurora, the MJ ETF, and Kronos. And everybody was like, "You're an idiot. It's a different world, blah, blah, blah." Let me tell you something. the one thing I can tell you that is constant is that history for pot stocks repeats itself. Okay, you can use what is going on, that volatility, to your advantage like no one else can. So as a rule, I have, if any pot stock position I am in February hits an all-time high, I cut 30% off of it. All right.
Sense.
And then I wait to buy the dip. Okay. Now, this only works with good companies, because you're going to you don't want to buy the dip on something that you think is, that it isn't executing.
It turns into a 7-layer dip.
Yeah. So now with that, we also have a blueprint of what U.S. legalization, and more importantly, what U.S. cannabis equities will look like, and how they will react and how they will trade. How do we have this? Well, we have this because in 2016, most of the Canadian pot stocks were all penny stocks. Okay. And then they grew, like Canopy was Tweed, Aurora was Aurora, it was like Organogram, Chronos, Afria, Tilray wasn't even around. And, once they said, Canada said, all right, we're going to make medical legal countrywide. Okay, that's the first catalyst. And then when we got into, when they made it legal, like for recreational use everywhere, that was October of 2018. And understanding how legislation works and everything, I knew that it was going to become an execution game. And you can also type in October calendar and you'll see, because that's when I exited like 80% of my pot stocks was in October of 2018. And I made a calendar while I was in Spain, like 2 weeks in advance. I even highlighted what days were going to be green and what days were going to be red. And it was like, I swear I'm not from the future. So,
all right, Biff.
So this is what's going to happen. Right now, we're like pot stocks, the volume is coming back. I do think that we bottomed. So on 4/19, so April 19th, I called the bottom of pot stocks. I go, I could be a couple ticks off. I go, but this is the bottom. I was like, we've given back 2021, we're going to go up. It's still going to be choppy. I think that the volume returns in July. I think you're going to have some legislative things. Now, the way that you look at this is there are 3 main factors, okay? 3 major catalysts, okay? And you should be looking at, especially like the top companies like Trulieve, Green Thumb, Curaleaf, Cresco Labs, TerraSend, like some of like those are like the big 5. Their profit, they're making money hand over fist. Every quarter is improving, okay? They're carving out like the biggest slice. But they're doing it with one hand tied behind their back. The difference between the US companies and the Canadians is the Canadians are losing money. All right, I'm going to put it in perspective for you. Canopy trades at a multiple of like 19. All right. Last quarter, it did 155 million, give or take, in revenue. Okay. They lost $2.4 a share. Okay, they had a negative margin. I forget what the margin was. They traded at a market cap of like $9 billion. So their multiple is like 19. Curaleaf, okay, which is a U.S. company, did $266 million in revenue. Biggest quarter ever put in cannabis industry, which the quarter before they did the biggest, which was 215 or 235. Curaleaf trades at a multiple of 6. All right. Their market cap to Canopy at the time was 40% less than Canopy. Okay. So Canopy is trading at a higher multiple, at a higher market cap, doing less in revenue. So what's the difference? The difference is that Canopy is trading on a major exchange. It's got the liquidity. All right. So all these companies are going to be on a major exchange at some point.
Sure.
When that happens, all the money from the Auroras, the Sundials, the Tilray, the Canopy, whatever, is all going to flow to the US companies. Now, the other thing is because of the liquidity, institutional investors can't really buy. Now, they could, but this is a little known fact. Unless you're trading over $100 million, even if you're on a major exchange, they're not going to touch you. because it's not liquid enough. So
Wow.
they want to, so the growth is there, and then it comes down to just a couple of, basic metrics. All right. We've got 10 times the population of Canada. All right.
Sure. Yep.
What we also have is the companies in the US have to be fiscally responsible. They can't do what the Canadians did, which was they were getting all this cheap money because there was a really robust and liquid market. And they were like, oh, well, we're going to buy this one for $500 million. We're going to buy, like so many deals. If you look at the balance sheet of some of these companies, the write-downs are in the billions.
Yeah.
But the US companies, because it's federally illegal, and they can't bank, like cash is really important. Okay, so they're also paying tax under this code. It's called 280E. 280E is basically you're paying tax like a drug deal. Put it in perspective, if Target paid tax under 280E like a cannabis company, their tax rate would be 81%. So it's tax based off of gross revenue. A company, Trulieve, who gave me this awesome tracksuit, paid $100 million in taxes in 2020, when they should have got something like 50 or 60 in money back.
Sure. Yeah.
They can't write off things like a normal business. They don't bank, like they can't even, like you want to go to a lender, they try and bank you for 12%. That's coming down. That's what safe banking is about. So you've got safe banking, you've got 280E, you've got legalization, all right? And legalization basically makes it into an execution story. Right now, it's the time you build your position, you hold a core and trade a core. So a position, like if you've got 10,000 shares of a company, you play with 1,000 to 1,500. You just take advantage of the range, give yourself insurance, pay yourself to be long. But you want to be in this position because, long story short, the US market is expanding. The fastest growing demographic for cannabis is people over 55.
Makes sense.
Cannabis jobs are outpacing all manufacturing for years. 2020 total cannabis sales were 17.5 billion. All right. In 2013, when I started, it was 1.3. The projection for 2025 is 30 billion. New York just went legal. They haven't sold a gram of legal weed. That's going to add 5 billion. It's not even being counted. New Jersey, which is already passed, hasn't sold a gram of recreational weed. Then you've got Texas, you've got other states. Once it's federally legal, it becomes a completely different shift. But now is the time to build positions and not look at it like everybody, like, oh, this thing sucks, it's going down. That's what you hear from people that were buying in, February at the top.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
I'm not complaining. Like I bought TerraSend at under $3. It's just under 12 right now.
Yep.
I think that this is, an easy double from here in the next 12 months. Right now, that's not every company. That's top tier companies that are actually putting in like serious numbers.
So let's help new would-be traders or those that are finding their way to dabble into marijuana stocks. What are your top three? You have three. Those are the ones you like today, for tomorrow.
So if you gave me $1,000 for each and I couldn't touch them for a year.
Okay. Perfect.
So Curaleaf, which is symbol CURLF.
Okay.
Green Thumb Industries, which is GTBIF.
Okay.
And Trulieve, which is TCNNF. They're all multi-billion-dollar companies. They are all printing money and dominating in different states.
I love it. You truly are the Wolf of Weed Street, man. I love it. You are a man who knows his craft. You understand it all. you taught me many things that I did not know. Obviously, I was playing hey, it's Biden, he's pro cannabis. I was along for that run, and
So
now we're waiting for.
That's actually a good topic. So people think, oh, you need legalization. If you told me tomorrow, KP, that you could make it so that cannabis was legal tomorrow, federally, I'd say, can you do it in a year? I want that to be prolonged and dragged out, because the other thing that people don't realize is before these companies are on a major exchange, the institutional money can't buy it, isn't buying it. So they're going to have to buy from us and pay a premium.
Yep.
So that's when I'm selling into them.
Yep.
And you have to look at it like that.
Yeah,
but
it makes sense.
At the same time, don't be one of those people that says, "Oh, I'm an investor for 5 years," especially if you're holding bags. You have got to stay active on this. I did a podcast with Tim Seymour and Guy Adami from Fast Money, and we talked about this in November, specifically pot stocks. You've got to have that sort of active investing, almost like an option strategy in them. Like, one, you're going to give yourself free shares. And what I mean by that is, if I buy Trulieve at 14, let's say I buy 10,000 shares at 14, okay? And then it goes to 15. All right, well, I sell 5,000 shares. That's a little aggressive, but let's just work the math a little.
Sure.
And then all of a sudden it pulls back to 14. Well, I buy 5,000 shares. All right? I take that money, that $5,000, and now that's my insurance. If there's a deeper pullback, then I'll buy some more. And then, and then I keep a note, how many of those shares are free. So since July, 25% of my cannabis portfolio has been paid for by the market.
By the market.
And then when your whole mentality changes when you start doing that, because then you're looking for then you're cheering on the pullbacks. You're like, panic sell.
Exactly.
So, it's the only and if there was an industry that I think had better returns, or had, the growth, I'd be in it. I'm not stuck on the idea of just because I'm Wolf of Weed Street. I've made a lot of money trading cannabis, but I trade a lot of other things, and the only thing that I'm after is really the ROI. I just think that in the next 2 years, 3 years, that the best ROI is going to be in high growth.
It's the gold rush, man. I mean, theoretically, right?
Yeah.
It's something that's new, and everybody and their grandmothers love it, right? For the most part. It's great, dude. I love it. It's been an awesome learning experience for me, and I hope everybody out there has learned something from this man. He knows his stuff, and I greatly appreciate you coming on, and I love the experience. I love everything that you put forward, and I love how you break everything down. It's going to help me in my trading journey, and I hope it, like we said, we can change the mindset of a few folks and put them in position not only for the short game, but more importantly the long game. But one thing we're always going to do on this show is end the show with a celebratory toast. So what I'd like to ask of you is to raise your glass and give everybody a toast, and you are going to end it. Dom's out there smoking his cigar.
May the best of your past be the worst of your future.
Perfect.
Salud.
Cheers, my friend.
Cheers.
Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you, guys.
Do you want to give any shout outs?
Come check me out in truetradinggroup.com. We have a thing where you can come. We give you courses. It's like Netflix. We give you all the courses. We don't upsell you. And you can try it out for a week for $3. It's non-reoccurring, and I promise you, even if you don't want to stay, it's definitely worth seeing, especially when you get to interact with me and trade with me throughout the course of the day and like 7 other moderators. All right.
Well, it's been a blast, my friend. Thank you very much
Thanks, buddy.
joining
Thanks for
us.
having me, guys.
Yeah, man. Have a great
Thanks
weekend.
for coming on.
And
I love your tracksuit, buddy. Oh, hold on. I got to show
I
my
might want.
Yeah.
went shopping in
Please, what are you wearing, Jason?
Okay. So I'm wearing my True Leave tracksuit that Kim Rivers, the CEO, had made for me, and she put the wolf on the back.
I love it.
Look at the
Oh,
look at this.
wow.
Oh,
Look at the
backwards.
pageantry. It's
Oh,
like I hope she made this like in her house, like just bedazzling over the weekend for me. But yeah, I have to shout out True Leave for sending me this awesome tracksuit.
Awesome.
All right.
I love it. Thank you very much for the experience. We appreciate it. And hopefully our paths cross again in the future, my friend.
For sure. I'll be on the
You do well,
100th
all right?
show.
There you go. Cheers.
salute to
Later,
that.
guys.